I gotta admit, the end of the Fever Mercury game made me sit up for a second because it got a little spicy with Caitlin Clark having an interaction with DeWanna Bonner out on the middle of the floor, sort of waving her back to the bench. But that interaction stood out to me for a couple of reasons. I mean, number one, obviously, is the history there, where DeWanna Bonner was on the Fever for a cup of coffee and then winds up on the Mercury. That before the season, Caitlin Clark said she wanted to win a ring for her. Right? You know, like she said, I want to win for her. And Caitlin Clark went out of her way to also, shine light on how DeWanna Bonner had risen up to the top of, near the top of the all-time WNBA scoring ranks. And
behold the clip, the raw, unfiltered fracture where their meticulously crafted narrative shatters like glass under a sledgehammer. They peddle this illusion to you, a mere flashpoint of rivalry, a blistering clash between titans of the court. But that's the grand deception, the smokescreen they hope you'll swallow whole. What pierced the air in that moment? The thunderous echo of allegiance hurled back like a venomous slap. Before the season's first whistle, Caitlin Clark, WNBA's supernova, laid her soul bare. She vowed, with the fervor of a warrior knight, to forge a championship crown for DeWanna Bonner. She exalted her, elevated her to the pantheon of legends, and flung open the gates of Indiana's kingdom to embrace her as kin. And now, witness the venomous requital. This wasn't some skirmish in the arena's Colosseum. No, this was a ritualistic takedown, a surgical strike of retribution. Cold as Arctic steel, precise as an assassin's blade, it was Caitlin Clark unleashing the hounds of vengeance for a treachery so profound it festered in the league's darkest underbelly. Tonight, I ripped the veil asunder, hauling every shadowed secret into the blinding glare of truth. This is the chronicle they've buried deep, the one that threatens to topple empires. Stay locked in. In the WNBA's glittering labyrinth, coincidence is a myth, every move a chess master's gambit. Let us rewind the reel, peel back the layers. To grasp the fury of reprisal, one must first confront the original sin. When DeWanna Bonner inked her pact with the Indiana Fever as a free agent, it was hyped as Destiny's Symphony, a flawless alliance forged in the fires of ambition. Enter the grizzled sage, the battle-hardened oracle destined to shepherd Clark and this fledgling dynasty toward immortal glory. Caitlin herself dove headlong into the mythos. She serenaded Bonner's storied saga, her throne among the scoring immortals, and her burning quest for that one glittering ring to crown her legacy. It was a spectacle of reverence, a thunderous oath of fealty broadcast to the masses. Clark staked her unblemished honor on this bond, championing Bonner as the Fever's North Star. But it was all a mirage, a serpent coiled in the garden. Just 9 games in, 9 fleeting heartbeats of the season, Bonner orchestrated her exodus. She demanded severance, vanished like smoke in the wind, abandoning the squad to founder in her wake. Sure, the league's a carousel of migrations, talent flows like quicksilver, that's the brutal commerce of the game. But this transcended the ledger. It was a dagger to the heart, a public evisceration of trust so audacious it scorched the soul. The full abyss of this perfidy surfaced only through the unyielding voice of Fever Sentinel Sophie Cunningham, who bared it all on her unfiltered podcast. With the grit of a truth-teller in exile, she unveiled the horror. Bonner didn't merely depart. She evaporated into ether. She ghosted them, utterly, mercilessly, leaving echoes of abandonment where camaraderie once roared.
Player on the damn team. I'm not just saying that just to say it. Lexi Hall stand on business when it's time to. Now, we all know that the Indiana Fever is trying to make a push for the playoffs. We've been getting mixed signals coming out about Caitlin coming back, about Caitlin being, somewhat ready to go. Then we got Stephanie White saying it's day-to-day again, basically. Well, I'm here to tell you, Caitlin Clark.
Cunningham didn't mince words. She eviscerated the facade with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. No farewell embrace, no fleeting message in the team's digital war room, not even a whisper of closure. It's the bare minimum of professionalism, she declared on her podcast, her voice laced with the raw sting of disillusionment. to fire off a text to your sisters in arms. Hey, this flame fizzled. Wishing you storms of success. Yet Bonner? She couldn't muster that sliver of civility, that fundamental thread of humanity. She devoured the red carpet welcome, basked in the golden glow of adulation from the fever's radiant prodigy, and then she dissolved into the void, silent as a grave, abandoning the fortress to crumble in her absence. The betrayal hung like a storm cloud, drenching the squad in a torrent of disbelief. Cunningham confessed to a spark of friction over the handling, a polite veil for the inferno that raged. Friction? That's the euphemism of the epoch. This was the clarion call to arms, the gauntlet slammed upon the polished hardwood. And heaven forbid anyone whispers that Clark let it slip from her ironclad memory. She's forged in the crucible of unyielding resolve. No slights evaporate. They crystallize into diamonds of determination. This isn't their inaugural collision, either. The venom traces its roots to the crucible of last season's playoffs, when Bonner prowled the Connecticut Sun's den. A barbed verbal volley erupted, capped by Clark's defiant nudge after a phantom non-call on her drive to the rim. The embers smoldered then, a prelude to pandemonium. Bonner's treacherous flight from Indiana? That was the bellows, fanning the blaze into a conflagration. Clark, ever the strategist, bided her time like a panther in the underbrush, her eyes locked on the horizon for that fateful spark. Propel ourselves to September 2nd, 2025, a date etched in the annals of WNBA lore. The fever clash with the Mercury in a cauldron of contention. Clark, the league's electric heartbeat, has been chained to the sidelines for 19 grueling games, her groin a traitorous specter sidelining the supernova. She's clad in civilian armor, a spectator in her own saga, utterly impotent on the floor. Prime prey, or so it seemed. Enter Bonner, scenting vulnerability like a predator in the mist. Amid the timeout's tense interlude, she strides toward her bench, but not in silence. Oh no. She's unleashing a tirade at the arbiters, decrying a phantom fall with theatrical fury. She orchestrates the spectacle inches from the Fever's War Council, mere breaths from Caitlin Clark herself. This was the precipice, the fulcrum of fate. Bonner presumed she was baiting a wounded lioness, flexing her veteran sinews to eclipse the sidelined icon who couldn't retaliate. Fatal hubris. She misread the board entirely, striding blindly into a labyrinthine snare woven with Clark's unerring cunning. Clark erupted from her perch like a thunderbolt unchained. No hesitation, no mercy. The courtside symphony, that illicit audio the league's overlords would bury in the abyss if they could, captured the symphony of supremacy. Clark transcended mere barbs. She wielded verity as her Excalibur. It's not a foul, she thundered, not in hysteria's grip, but with the dispassionate exactitude of a quantum physicist dissecting reality. Repetition honed it to a razor, surgical, unassailable, eviscerating Bonner's grievance before the Colosseum's gaze. And then, the apex of Arctic retribution, the denouement that will haunt Bonner's twilight years like a specter's whisper. As Bonner postures, inflating her chest in a desperate bid for alpha dominance, the grizzled guardian reduced to bluster, Clark unleashes the sublime. No crude shove mars her grace. No primal roar shatters the air. She opts for annihilation's poetry, a languid, laced with sarcasm flourish of the hand, dismissing Bonner back to her lair as one might banish a buzzing gnat from a banquet. That gesture? No mere reflex. It was a manifesto, a decree broadcast across the ether to Bonner and the league's pantheon alike. It proclaimed, "You forsook our covenant. You scorned my fealty. You are but dust in my rear view. Begone." The apex of eons of seething fury, distilled into one viral vignette of virtuosity. A conqueror sans a single dribble, a monarch enthroned in streetwear. The digital Colosseum ignited instantaneously. The footage metastasized across the web's veins, devouring bandwidth like wildfire. The Mercury's hollow triumph? Obscured in the haze. Bonner's 19-point mirage? Irrelevant footnotes. The discourse fixated on the alchemy, how a beleaguered Clark rendered a battle-scarred Titan absurd with effortless elegance. Memes minted themselves in the forge of frenzy. Bonner, compressed into irrelevance, unhinged and brine-soaked, a punchline etched in pixels. She sought confrontation. Instead, she crowned herself the unwitting finale in Clark's magnum opus of reprisal. This is the enigma they fumble in their grasp regarding Caitlin Clark. They fancy they can erode her essence with brute force, insidious elbows, venomous volleys. But they skirmish on a checkered board of simplicity, while she orchestrates symphonies on the grand chessboard of destiny. Every illicit bump, every shadowed glare, mere kindling for her legend, tesserae in her monumental mosaic. She alchemizes animosity into rocket fuel, transmuting scorn into stardust. Bonner wielded her tenure as a broadsword. Clark parried and transfigured it into a relic of ridicule, antiquated, frantic, utterly obsolete. The exquisite twist? Bonner fled the fever's embrace, shattered the sacred pact, spectralized the devotee who yearned to etch her name in championship gold, only to ignite the fray anew. Her sentence? A spectacle of public debasement, decreed by a solitary, sovereign sweep of the wrist. Not a fleeting eclipse, this was a cataclysmic cornerstone of chagrin, regret, atonement. Beneath the unblinking lens, amid the global gaze. And, the most spectral revelation? She orchestrated this dominion from. This catapults us to the abyss the League's New York citadel dreads to plumb. Is Bonner a solitary specter, or merely a pawn in the insidious insurgency arrayed against Caitlin Clark? Discern the fractal patterns permeating the ether, the skewed scepter of umpiring, the initiation rites masquerading as mayhem, the relentless phalanx of elders queuing to eclipse her luminescence. They all echo Bonner's folly, mistaking a neophyte for fragile prey, a fledgling to be cowed. They blind themselves to the colossus, a zeitgeist incarnate, a virtuoso of viral verdicts, a savant who comprehends that today's Colosseum triumphs as fiercely in the tribunal of perception as upon the varnished veneer. DeWanna Bonner? Merely the freshest codex in Clark's compendium of cautionary tales, a billboard of admonition, courtesy of the Queen herself. Her vengeance, so immaculate, so inexorable, that Bonner is forever shackled to that spectral shoe-away, her ledger eclipsed by the indignity of dismissal. Yet the chronicle endures. This skirmish is but a salvo. Clark mends in the shadows, while the old guard marshals anew. Ponder this. If her sideline salvo chills the marrow thus, what Armageddon awaits her triumphant return? Who occupies the crosshairs next? For I delve into the depths, unearthing tendrils that serpentine far beyond our wildest reckonings. The perfidy ignited by Bonner? It sprawls into infinities unforeseen.